Yeah, Mike. I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely changed it. Our inventory, I'll talk a little bit about how it's changed, and Mike can go into some more details on facts and figures. But, we haven't had a share of sales since March-ish. So our file counts has come to a standstill. We are slow in that aspect. The eviction moratorium is, the occupied properties that we manage, where we typically try to evict them and do that, the eviction moratorium has slowed that. So our inventory has slowed due to COVID. We expect it to increase significantly and get back on track to where it was, if not greater, where it was pre-COVID. And Mike could touch on a little bit of those numbers, but that's what we've seen slowing wise.
Yeah, so, from the servicers aspect, who basically will handle, the servicers basically will handle a lot of the distressed assets of larger banks, again, that are mainly interested in the performing notes, not so interested in the non-performing, and they don't really have the staff to deal with it. So they'll basically outsource. When we say servicers, I'm sure people are like wondering what that is. They're servicers basically are an outsourced workforce for banks to handle and deal with non-performing assets for the most part. So, the servicers, the attorneys, everyone's been kind of walking the line of like, just imagine basically, well, I guess a lot of people are going through it now I think about it, but, with the shutdown, I mean, you went from, being able to gauge what your 2020 was going to look like 2021 based on what had been normalized levels, again, with, pretty much 3% of mortgages being delinquent. Now, you have an idea of how to staff, right? Well, now all of a sudden the spigot is shut off in March. So if you're these servicers, you're these attorneys, you're, in the industry, the trick has been, how do you appropriately staff to weather the storm of 2020 and basically getting no new files, while being able to prepare for what's likely to come in 2021 after the moratorium. So it's been challenging for the entire industry, really, to try to figure out how do you bleed cash only a little bit, because, keeping staff and being prepared is, it costs money. So this year on the delinquency side has been slow, and, again, normal level is 3%. Illinois has the largest delinquency rate in the Midwest. And so right now in Illinois, since March, we're looking at around 8.5% of mortgages in delinquency.
Let's put that 8.5 in perspective. 2008, we saw a delinquency rate of about 9.75%.
And that was 9.75. That's Illinois. That was kind of Illinois' peak, you're saying?
Yeah.
I've seen between that and 11%. So Illinois might have been 11%, between 10 and 11% at its peak. But, for the past 3 years, things have pretty normalized down to about 3%, which historically is pretty much normal levels.
So real quick, Mike, to dig in there, does it make any difference to me as an investor looking for these type of properties that hit the market? Does it make any difference that back then everyone was upside down, whereas now, there's probably a little bit more equity built in there, like, or more, even though the delinquency rate is high there's a lot of people that, fortunately for them, can get out before the hammer hits, right? You can sell, you have more exits than what would have happened in 08, 09, or is that inaccurate?
I'd say it's accurate in some senses and maybe not in others. So, the difference between now and the last crash is that the last crash was really caused by real estate. In this case, it really wasn't caused by real estate. And, with the way that everything has shaken out, I mean, the banks aren't the bad guys this time around. And so, and also at the same time, banks are knowing how to handle a sudden surge in default assets. So in other words, when the last crash happened, I mean, all of a sudden banks, their default departments weren't staffed up for it, and banks were freaked out. And at the same time, they were the bad guy. So, constant negative press on the banks and the media. I mean, they didn't know what to do. They were totally caught off guard. So back then you were able, they were selling stuff at 25 cents on the dollar. Now they're going to be a little bit more prepared to handle things. And in Illinois specifically, it'll be a slow trickle just because of how long. I mean, again, we were going back with how long it takes for the foreclosure process in Illinois. I mean, if you thought that the judges were going to be super friendly to owner-occupant borrowers pre-COVID, just imagine what happens when the owner-occupant borrower goes into the courts and says, hey, my hardship is due to COVID, a global pandemic. The judge is going to say, okay, I'll see you in 6 months. So there's going to be extension after extension, and that's going to delay the inventory. And I think personally that it's going to be more of a slow trickle than a sudden surge. So I see a lot of investors that are sitting on the sidelines saying, I'm going to wait till prices crash because that's when I'm going to put my money in. And there's a lot of investors sitting on the sideline waiting for this, phantom inventory to come out of nowhere. There is going to be more inventory, but I don't think it's going to sink prices like it did the last crash, especially when you consider lower interest rates. And especially when you consider that, yes, even though some of that default inventory is going to come on, you're also still going to even have inventory issues with that anyways, because you're still going to have people buying homes. An interesting thought I was thinking about the other day was, with COVID and everything, I mean, you're going to see seniors hold on to their homes longer and not be willing to go to these senior care facilities because they've seen their friends in the senior care facilities and they see that, no one can visit them. Their family can't go see them. So a lot of that downsizer inventory might be delayed in hitting the market as well. So in other words, right now, I think, don't not buy because you think prices are going to sink, because one, inventory is going to take a long time to hit the market. The distressed inventory is probably going to take around 12 months from now to hit the market. And it's going to continue to trickle out for another 2 years after that.